The updated banner lineup from 5.5 to 5.8 is bringing some big changes, including Skirk's long-awaited debut and a dedicated support for her in 5.6. With new characters, key reruns, and shifting banners, there's a lot to cover. Let's break down everything we know so far and what it means for your Primo Gems. If you're looking to save up to 23% on the current banners, check out lootbar.gg. Here, I'm buying the 6,480 Genesis Crystals pack for $79, while it costs $100 in-game, saving me $21 instantly. The top-up process is super simple. I just entered my UID and selected my server. In less than 5 minutes, the gems appeared in my account. As you can see, I received double the amount for my first purchase, just like with in-game top-ups. Beyond Genshin, you can also top up in Honkai Star Rail, and Lootbar has over 50,000 satisfied users. I regularly use Lootbar for my giveaways, so I can personally recommend it. New users can get an extra 8% discount from the link in the description. So, starting with version 5.5, we pretty much know everything about the banners, at least when it comes to the characters. Thanks to insider info, we know that Varesa, Xianyun, Zelonin, and Venti will be featured. The only thing that hasn't been shared yet is the order of the phases, so if you're planning your pulls, just keep that in mind. You might have to wait until the live stream for the final details. Now, 5.6 is where things start to get really interesting. Up until recently, we weren't entirely sure about the new characters, but now we have some leaked details that give us a much clearer picture. Based on the character ID list, the next new 5-star isn't from Natlan. Instead, it looks like Fontaine is getting another addition to the roster, and this time it's the chef girl. Her name is still uncertain, but it's been referenced as Akifi or Effie. What makes her really intriguing is that she's a cryo polearm user, and her kit is looking pretty promising. If you're planning to build the best team for Skirk, then Akifi is definitely someone to consider pulling. Her elemental skill is an automatic off-field coordinated attack that hits once per second, applying cryo every 2.5 seconds. In terms of damage, she's been compared to Furina when built in a similar way, which already tells us that she's likely going to be a strong unit. Her elemental burst is where things get even more unusual. It instantly heals the entire team, then continues to provide single-target healing over time. But instead of scaling off HP, her healing actually scales off attack, which is pretty rare for a healer. Then there's her passive talent, and this is where she gets really spicy. If your team consists only of Hydro and Cryo characters, she reduces both Hydro and Cryo resistance by 45%, which is a massive debuff. That means she's designed specifically for freeze teams, and considering Skirk is coming in 5.7, this might be Hoyoverse's way of introducing her perfect teammate right before her release. And if you're wondering what she looks like, well, insiders have said she has a design similar to Asuna from Sword Art Online, which is definitely an interesting comparison, but she's not the only new character coming in 5.6. We're also expecting Aoife, who is confirmed to be a 4-star Catalyst user. Unfortunately, we don't have much info on his kit yet, but if we look at previous releases, it's likely that he'll be designed to complement the main 5-star of the patch, which in this case is a Kefi/Effie. Alongside these two, we should also see at least one Natlan character rerun, which will likely be either Kinich or Mualani, or maybe even both. On top of that, expect an Inazuma rerun, since Inazuma characters have been stacking up on the waiting list for a while now. Moving on to 5.7, we're looking at one of the most anticipated character releases in a long time, Skirk. She's been teased in the game's lore for years, and now we're finally getting her as a 5-star cryo character. We still don't know what weapon she'll use, but given her lore and playstyle hints, a sword seems like the most likely option. However, what we do have is a very interesting clue about her kit. In version 5.5, a new artifact set is being introduced, and everything about it screams Skirk's signature playstyle. The 2-piece bonus is standard. It increases cryo damage by 15%. But the 4-piece effect is what really stands out. It boosts normal attack damage and elemental burst damage by 60%, but with a very unique limitation. The normal attack buff is only active when the character's energy is at 0. Once they deal normal attack damage, the burst buff is disabled for 6 seconds. On the other hand, after using an elemental burst, the normal attack buff is disabled for 6 seconds. This kind of mechanic is something we've never seen before. It suggests that Skirk's playstyle revolves around alternating between normal attacks and bursts, potentially burning through all of her energy when casting her burst, then relying on high-damage normal attacks, while regenerating it. If this is true, there are 2 main ways this could work. She might be a quick-swap burst DPS, meaning she jumps in, deals huge damage, and then switches out. Or she could be a true on-field DPS, similar to Mavuika, where she fights without relying on energy for her burst and instead uses a unique normal attack state. Now, she's not the only new character in 5.7. The other one is Dahlia, who will be a 4-star character. There's not much known about him yet, but this marks the final character from the official pre-release lineup. And here's where things get really unfortunate. Mavuika is getting her first rerun in 5.7, and it just so happens to be alongside Skirk. That's brutal, because Skirk is already one of the most hyped characters in a long time, and running Mavuika next to her is just, yeah. To make things worse, there's also a high chance that the remaining Natlan character who didn't get a rerun in 5.6 will appear here. So if Mualani or Kinich don't show up in 5.6, they're likely here instead. And, of course, another Inazuma rerun is expected as well. This means we're getting back-to-back patches where Inazuma characters start rerunning consistently, which is good news if you've been waiting for someone specific. But overall, 5.7 is shaping up to be one of the most expensive patches in a while. Also, it's very likely that we'll see a Tartaglia rerun alongside Skirk in 5.7, given their strong connection in the lore, just like how Neuvillette and Zhongli were paired together in 5.2 due to their intertwined stories. Now, moving beyond 5.7, we have 5.8, which is shaping up to be the big summer event patch. Every year, Genshin Impact delivers a major limited-time summer event, and this version will likely follow that tradition. While we don't have any details on the characters yet, we can make some educated guesses about the event's location and possible releases. Since Snezhnaya is the next region, it makes sense that the summer event could take place somewhere near Mondstadt, or even touching on Snezhnaya itself. Now, one interesting possibility is that Dahlia, the 4-star character we talked about earlier, might actually be released in 5.8 instead of 5.7. If the summer event turns out to be connected to either Mondstadt or Snezhnaya, it would make perfect sense for Dahlia to debut there. That being said, even if Dahlia does get released in 5.8, the rest of the banners will likely focus on reruns. Since this will be the last patch before Snezhnaya's release, Hoyoverse might use this time to bring back some older characters who haven't had a rerun in a while. This could be a chance for long-awaited reruns that didn't fit into the previous patches, making 5.8 one of the last big opportunities to pull for older characters before the game moves on to the next region. So what do you guys think? Are you pulling for Skirk, or is Akefi Effie the one that caught your attention? And how do you feel about Mavuika's rerun timing? Let me know in the comments, and if you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to subscribe for more updates. Save up to 23% on the current banners at lootbar.gg. All you need is your UID and server. The link is in the description.